Good evening, everybody. This is Dr. Ansel Augustine from the Archdiocese of New Orleans. And I'm blessed to be here for the Diocese of Bridgeport to talk to you about developing a deeper relationship with Jesus Christ. You know, when you hear about the terms developing a deeper relationship with Jesus Christ, we think about our Protestant brothers and sisters and their terminology about everything is about a deeper relationship with Christ. Do you know Jesus? Are you saved? Those kind of questions come to mind. And we think, and over the years, we've developed the idea that developing a deeper relationship is not necessarily Christian or Catholic. Let me say Catholic, when in fact it is. I imagine when I think about a relationship with Jesus Christ, the two parts of the cross. The horizontal being our relationship with one another and the community around us, but the vertical being our connection and our relationship with Jesus. And it flows from that. You know, the Eucharist is important to our Catholic faith. And it's that Eucharistic relationship, whether it's through adoration or through Mass or the sacrament of Holy Communion, in which we are enriched ourselves to have a deeper relationship with the world around us. In Vatican II, in their document Gaudium et Spes, it states that the earthly and heavenly city penetrate each other is a fact accessible to faith alone. It remains a mystery of human history, pursuing the saving purpose which is proper to her. The Church does not only communicate divine life to men, but in some way casts the reflected light of that life over the entire earth. Most of all by its healing and elevating impact on the dignity of the person, by the way in which it strengthens and seams of human society and imbues the everyday activity of men with a deeper meaning and importance. Thus, through her individual matters and her whole community, the Church believes she can contribute greatly toward making the family of man and its history more human. The Church itself calls us to have a deeper relationship with Christ so that we too can go out in the world and help others have a deeper relationship itself. In fact, the new evangelization, as the USCCB puts it, calls us to inform ourselves of what the faith is, get a deeper relationship with Christ through the faith, so that we can, part two, go out in the world and share that faith. That's what the new evangelization tells us. And that's what we're called to live out in our own daily lives. So for me, I'd like to give y'all 3 ways in which you can have a deeper relationship with Christ. And the first is through prayer. We are called to have a deep prayer life. In fact, when we want to have a deep relationship with someone else, whether it's a friend or a family member, co-worker, whoever, we communicate with that person, whether it's on the phone, whether it's on email, whether it's on text, however, we communicate with that person. And so too, we are called to communicate with our Father. With Jesus himself, the Son, we are called to have a deeper relationship by sharing our intimate conversations with him. He already knows us, but we are called to know him better. And that is through prayer. The time we spend talking with our loved ones and listening to their needs and concerns allows our relationships to be deeper. Likewise, when we grow in our relationship with God through prayer, we come to understand him better and understand his will for us. We are called to know God. And to know him means to have an intimate relationship with him. So what does it mean to have a personal relationship with the Lord? It means that we let God take charge of our lives, that we form a relationship with his mystical body, and we get to know him better. It also demands that we seek a constant and perpetual conversion, serving others in love, and to create disciples. The second part of having a deeper relationship with Jesus is to have a relationship with his church. It goes back to when Saul was persecuting Christians. And Jesus said to him in Acts 9, he said, I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. So was Saul necessarily persecuting Jesus himself? in the flesh? No. He was persecuting his people, the church. And so for us to have a deeper relationship with Jesus, we are called to have a deeper relationship with his church. Knowing the church history, knowing the church documents, but most of all, knowing his people. Whoever they may be, however they may appear, however they may come. We are called to know them and serve them and love them. As hard as it may be at times, we are called to love his people. And the final part that I'd like to share with having a deeper relationship with Jesus is by serving his people and seeing him in others, especially those that may not be like us. Being a disciple of Christ means serving others, getting out of our comfort zones and seeing where the church is most needed and bringing him and serving him there. We are called to step out in faith and bring our faith to others. That's what the saints did. The saints of God didn't live perfect lives. We tend to put them on pedestals and see the statues in our churches and the prayers and the days of obligation and the just different ways of looking at them. And we put them on pedestals, but they had rough lives if you look at the lives of our saints. But what they did was they had a personal connection and relationship with Jesus. And it was in that relationship they were able to step out in faith and look at the positive in the most darkest situations and shine the light of Christ in those areas. So for me personally, and some of y'all have heard my story before, but in 2005, my life was changed forever when Hurricane Katrina hit my city. I was homeless for 2 years. I had to bury 19 of my family and friends, even the love of my life. I had to identify their bodies. I had to organize funerals after funeral after funeral. I lived inside for a period of time in my home parish, St. Peter Claver, pulling out the pews when curfew allowed it. I had to rebuild the homes of many of my family and friends, senior citizens. We gut their houses, but when they would come home and see their pictures destroyed, their heirlooms destroyed, their neighborhoods they grew up in destroyed, many of them lost faith. So for us, people ask me, how did I make it through? It was through my first personal relationship with Jesus, which at times were strained because I would ask, why is this happening? Why me? And then there were times I would step out and say, Lord, I know you have a deeper purpose in all of this. And so I communicated with him more than I communicated with him before because he is all I had. And so for many of us, we made it through by strengthening our relationship with Jesus and focusing on what we were called to do to help others. So for me, my personal relationship was strengthened through him and by him because I focused on him. So my challenge to you is to see where in your community that God's love is needed and to strengthen your communication with Jesus and ask him, what is it you are calling me to do? By studying the scriptures, studying our church documents, but listening to what's being said to you during the homilies at Mass, and knowing that God is calling you, just like he calls everybody else, to be those holy people of God, to step out in faith and use the gifts he's given you to make the world a better place. Because in our life, we have to remember faith in Christ is more than merely an intellectual assent to propositions or the practice of set rituals. Our faith calls us to know who we are, but more importantly, to know whose we are as children of him. We're supposed to set out in bold, clear evangelization that leads people to a personal relationship with Christ. When St. John Paul II talked to the bishops in southern Germany in December 4th, 1992, he said, "It is necessary to awaken again in believers a full relationship with Christ. Only from a personal relationship with Jesus can an effective evangelization develop." When I talk to adults that work in ministry and they feel burnt out and they feel tired, I tell them, have you taken time out for yourself? Have you taken time out to explore that original why of why you stepped out in faith? Because you cannot give what you do not have. So how can we talk to people about Jesus and his love for them if we don't know it ourselves? There's a world out there that's hurting. We are called to step out in faith to give them that love And we must remember that we have in the Trinity, there it is in itself a relationship between the Father, Son, and the Spirit. And we are called to live in that relationship as well by knowing Him and who He is to us. In other words, faith is a total self-surrender of the human person to the living God, who we come to believe in. So we are called to surrender ourselves and step out in faith. So I leave you with this. As you step out in faith, remember, faith is not about you, but about what God does through you. So know that you're not called to be the expert. Know that you're not called to know it all, but you're called to know Him and let Him know you. So as you step out in faith, remember, He is in control, and He will control whatever it is happens from that point on. Diocese of Bridgeport, I will be praying for you, and I ask you to pray for me as well. Peace and God bless.